Hello students, this is Miss Cave and our lesson today is on surface area. And surface area you can kind of see through the paper, and we are learning about surface area of prisms. So far we've learned about how to find the volume of a prism, and to find the volume of the prism we multiply the length times width times height. But today we are transitioning to surface area. So we have a foldable you should have received in class. It will also be put on my Edmodo page if you need to download it and print it out at home. So this is what your foldable should look like. And we're just going to look at a couple of different examples. And we're going to come up with the formula. And we are going to write some information about surface area here, just like we did with volume. So if I have words, I'm going to look for words, because you're not often asked in real life, find the surface area of something. Instead, you might be asked to wrap a gift. So think about what type of words would clue you in to having to find the surface area of something. Around, okay? If something's going to go around something, okay? Maybe, what's another word? Because around, I'm thinking of one dimension, like a perimeter. To cover something, yes, cover would be a word. Another one we talked about, remember we talked about how much paper we would need? What would that be? For a gift, how much paper I need for a gift? Do I stuff the paper inside the gift? I mean, sometimes if it's tissue paper, but if we're putting it around, what are we doing with the paper? What is that called when I get the paper and the tape and I put the box on it? I what? You're wrapping it. So if I cover or wrap something, those are words that I use in terms of surface area. Whereas volume, we talked about we're filling things and we're filling up the inside of something. So our formula for surface area, and we're dealing with rectangular prisms. We talked about before the video, this particular video, that a rectangular prism has how many faces? 6. It has 6 faces. So if I'm going to cover the surface of all of those 6 faces, I need to find the area of all 6. What shape? What shape are rectangular prisms in? Rectangle. So I have 6 rectangles. So what you have is you have the front of a rectangular prism. You have the top, and you also have this, you have your side. I'll just put an S for side. But from that 3-dimensional picture that I drew, it's only a 2-dimensional, actually made out of pen, but I only see how many of the sides right now? Or faces. I only see 3, but how many more are there? There are 3 more. Because what we have is we have a top, right? And if I have a top of a shape, I also need to have a what? A bottom. I have a top and a bottom. What else do I have? A front and a back. So I have a front and a back. Plus I have 2 more sides, 2 more faces, and that would be the right side and the left side. So I'm just going to right and left. My right and left sides. Now sometimes you'll need to cover the complete box, but sometimes you won't have to cover the whole thing. Let's say we're painting a toy box, and the toy box is on the ground, and we don't need to paint the underneath, right? Because you're not even going to see it. So you need to understand how to use the formula so that sometimes you may not use the whole formula. You'll see what I mean as we get to some of these examples. The formula for surface area, I'm just going to drop it down here under example 1. Our formula for surface area is 2 times length times width plus 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height. Okay. How many 2's do you see there? 3. I have 3 2's. What's 3 times 2? 6. How do you think that applies to the actual shape? I have 6 2's here. I mean 6 length times widths. How do you think that applies to the shape? How many faces does the shape have? 6. And you notice this gives us 2, 4, 6 of the faces. So the first two, the length times width, that's how we calculate our top and our bottom. The length times height, if you notice here, so length, we should label this, length times width times height. Our length times height is going to give us our front and our back, and then our width times height is going to give us, you can see from the picture, the width times height gives us the area of each side. So the right and the left. So we're going to plug in the numbers into the formula and solve it, but I want you guys to think about where those, where the formula comes from. There's a front and the back, so it's 2 length times width. Or top and bottom, so it's 2 length times width. There's one front and one back, but they're the same, so it's 2 length times height. And there's one right and one left, but they're congruent, so it's 2 width times height. So now that we have that, we're going to apply these formulas to our examples. So let's start with our first example. Just open this up. You have a nice picture here. And just like when we worked with cylinders and volume of rectangular prisms, we always start with our formula. So we're going to write down volume. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to write down surface area. Surface area equals 2 length times width plus 2 length times height plus 2 width times height. Okay, so you have to write down the formula. And we're looking for surface area, so that means we're going to cover this box. We're going to cover it. We're not filling it. If we were finding volume, it would be so easy. We just multiply those 3 numbers together. Surface area takes a little bit more work, but it's not impossible. So our first step is we're going to go ahead and just plug in our numbers. So I'm going to rewrite my formula. Surface area equals 2. And when we have numbers and variables together like this, what operation am I using? I'm multiplying. So I'm going to use my dot, or you could use parentheses or the multiplication sign. I'm going to use a dot. And then what is the length of this shape? 10. I'm going to label it. If you have a picture, you should label it because you won't confuse the dimensions. So this is going to be 2 times 10 times, and then what's my width? 5. You see that? The 5. So I'm going to label that as well. So far, this is 2 because there are 2. There's a top and a bottom. 10 times 5 is the area of the bottom and the top. And now I'm going to go on to the front and the back. So then I'm going to get a different color to kind of help me keep track. 2 times, what's my length? 10. See, I'm just plugging in the numbers. And then what's my height? 2. My height is over here at 2. And then I'm going to finish off with my sides. And my sides, I'm going to start, I know I have 2 sides, a right and a left. And then what's my width? 5. And I already have my height, which is 2. Okay, so when you're finding the entire surface area, you can just use your calculator and put it all in. Now, if we were only finding part of it, we might have to change our formula first. But your calculator knows the order of operations. We've been practicing the order of operations. I know that you know them from what you've done, and so you can actually take your calculator and plug this in. So we're going to do that together. So grab your calculator and then just put these numbers in. Don't stop. Don't press equals until you get to the end. So I'm multiplying 2, everybody with me, times, next number, everybody, times 5, now what? Plus, next number, 2 times 10 times 2 plus 2 times 5 times 2, and then what do I press? Equals. Did you get 160? Okay, so your answer then, the surface area of this shape is equal to 160. And what kind of units am I going to use? Square or cubed? Cubed is for volume. Square, because think about the paper I would use to wrap something. It's just two-dimensional. So like if I was using this paper and I'm finding the area of a surface, it's surface area, so it's not what's inside, it's what's on the outside. So this is actually going to be square units. Okay? All right, let's try example 2. So example 2, we're going to move on over here. I'm going to close this and got my formula in front of me. So example 2, instead of a picture, we have what? Words. So I'm going to write my formula again. Surface area equals 2 times length times width plus 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height. Same formula. And in my problem, I'm going to go ahead and underline my length, my width, and then this time we have depth. So we have depth. Depth would be the same thing as what? If I'm looking at how deep something is, what would be another word we could use for depth? Height. Height. So I'm going to write here, this is my height. Height is how tall something is when things are out of water, but when we're in water, we call it depth. We don't say the height of the pool. We say the depth of the pool, how deep the pool is. Okay? So a lot of times it just gets a little bit wordy, so we've got to take this slow. So surface area, what's the first part? What am I going to write for this first 2LW? 2 times length, 24, times width, 17. So that's my top and my bottom. And I guess they're saying this room has a depth of 5 feet. The more I look at it, that may not be the best way to word a room. It's more like a swimming pool, but we'll go with it. Height would be a better word. Unless your room is like underground and you're like stepping into a room. Maybe it's like a storm shelter. We'll go with that. This is a storm shelter room. So you're stepping down, so it's underneath the ground. That could be depth, right? Like if you dig something. We'll go with that. Let's make it work. All right, and so what about the next part? 2 times, what are the other two numbers? 24 times 5. And then the last part is 2 times 17 is our width, and our height is 5. So now what do? Put it all on my calculator. Now if you're having trouble like keeping up with the keys and you're making mistakes, you can do each of these separately and then add them at the end too. It doesn't take that much longer. So you can definitely do that as well, but everybody is working on this problem. Kenya? So you're plugging in your numbers on your own this time. And then once you get it, go ahead and compare it with your group. I like to do this twice to make sure I didn't make a mistake. So I did it one time and I got an answer. And I'm going to do it again just for accuracy because sometimes I'll press a wrong key. Okay, I got the same thing twice, so I think I'm good. When you've got it, just hold up your calculator so I can see. So some of you I know are having a little bit of trouble with it. Let me show you another way you could do it. You could do each of these sections individually. So I'm going to try that. So I'm going to do 2 times 24 times 17. So I'm going to get the area, this. I see you. And here, oh, I thought you were trying to get my attention. 2 times 24 times 5. See what I'm doing? I'm doing each of the multiplication sections separately because sometimes I make mistakes when I press the keys on the calculator, and I don't want that to keep me from, like just now I did. I pressed a, so I got 170. So now if I add these three numbers, see how it's an extra step, but I can just add in my 240 and my 816, and I got it wrong. 816 plus 240 plus 170. Yep, now I've got it. So how many of you got 1,226? Okay, good. Whether you do it all at once or you break it down, you'll get the same answer. And what are my units? What are my units here? Feet. What kind of feet? Not cubed. Squared, because it's surface area. Not the feet on your foot. Okay? It's just a little more complicated because we're putting in more numbers, but we know how to evaluate expressions, so shouldn't be too hard. So let's move on to example 3. Example 3. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, so now we have a word problem about a toy box. A toy box, and it gives us the length, the width, and the height. So this says a toy box has a length of 4.5 feet, a width of 2 feet, and is 3 feet tall. So if something's tall, if we're saying how tall it is, what word do we use that goes with how tall something is? Height. Again, this is height. It's a different way of saying height. So we're going to use our formula. We're finding surface area. So you write down your surface area formula. Surface area equals 2 times length times width. That's the top and the bottom. Plus 2 times length times height. Plus 2 times width times height. So then we're going to put in our numbers. 2 times, what is my length? 4.5. And my width? 2. And then that's the top and the bottom. And I'm going to go with my front and my back. 2 times 4.5. And then the height is 3. Plus 2 times what? What's my width? W is 2. And then H, we said tall. If I'm talking about how tall something is, that's my height. So now you can do it, you can section it and do one section at a time or try to do it all at once. But check yourself. If you get the same answer twice, then it's probably correct. If you don't get the same answer, you're going to have to keep working on it until you do. Oops, I messed up. I pressed the wrong key, so that's why sometimes it's better to break it up. So I got my first answer, but I'm going to see if I can get the same thing again. I'm just using my calculator right now, same as you. Okay, I got the same answer twice. Did you get 57? Awesome. Okay, that's what I got too. So surface area is equal to 57 feet. Squared or cubed? Squared. Okay. So we have one more problem. And what we're going to do is I want you to look at that problem. And I want you to figure out how you're going to solve it. And then I want you to compare in your groups. So we've got one more problem here. You're painting the box below, except for the top. How many square inches of the prism will you paint? So we're going to pause the video. All right, now you've had some time to look at this problem. So if you notice, you're painting the box below except for the top. So you're not painting the top. And you're having to find the surface area because you're painting, which is another word that we use to cover something with paint. So this is how we know it's surface area, because we're painting something. You guys just follow along with me. I know some of you were working on the problem, and now we're going to find out how we actually do it. So you have a picture of the box. So when you have a picture, it's helpful to draw on the picture, because I know I'm not going to paint the top. I'm going to put an X through the top to remind myself not to paint it. And then I'm going to think back to the formula that I had. Remember, in the beginning, we said that the length times width was the top and the bottom. Now for this one, do I need the top and the bottom? No, I only need the what? Bottom. So watch this. We're going to play around with the formula. We're going to write it down here at the bottom of our paper. Surface area, 2 times length times width, plus 2 times length times height, plus 2 times width times height. Now remember, I'm going to write on here too, and you guys need to do it as well. This is our top and our bottom. This is our front and our back. And this is our right side and our left side. Okay? So when I'm doing a problem like this and I'm not painting all of it, I'm not finding the surface area of the entire prism. Let's look at this. Am I going to paint the right side? Sorry, this should say right and left. Am I painting the right and the left? Am I painting the front and the back? And am I painting the top and the bottom? So I'm painting the bottom, but watch this, not the top. So in our formula, what should we do? Okay, he says we're going to change this 2. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to change it to a 1, but if we're multiplying by 1, do we really need to put it there? Because length times width is just going to give that to us. So watch, when we put in our numbers into the formula, we're just going to use length times width 1 time because we're not painting the top. So our length is 10. Our width, so you really need to label here so you know which numbers are which, is 3. Our width is 3, and our height is equal to 4. So now we're going to go in and plug in our numbers, just like the last problem, except now we took away the 2 because we're only painting the bottom, not the top. So surface area is equal to 2. Nope. Look, I almost did it. No 2. Length is what? 10 times width, 3, plus, do I need a 2 now? Yeah, because I need the front and the back. 2 times 10 times 4, plus, do I need a 2 here? Yes. 2 times 3 times 4. So now that we have the numbers, all we did was take out that 2. And like Giovanni said, we could make that a 1, but we don't need to because whenever I multiply something by 1, it stays the same. So you're going to grab your calculators and go ahead and calculate the surface area of this box if you weren't painting the top. Okay, I got my answer, but I'm going to do it one more time to see if I get the same one. I did get the same answer. So I multiply those together on my calculator, or I can do 3 separate sections. What did you guys get? 134 inches cubed. So that's our answer, and this concludes our lesson on surface area of rectangular prisms. Have a great day.